Have you ever made a choice that you were certain ruined your entire life? Imagine holding your dreams in your hands, only to let them slip away because you decided to be human for just one moment. That is exactly what happened to Liam. He thought his future was over when he missed the most important meeting of his career. But he had absolutely no idea that the stranger he stopped to save held the key to a door he thought was closed forever. The morning rain in London was relentless, drumming against the window pane of Liam's small, cramped flat. It was the kind of gray, miserable weather that usually made people want to curl up under a duvet and forget the world existed. But for Liam, today was not a day for hiding. It was the day that would decide whether he kept a roof over his head or found himself sleeping on the cold, wet streets. He stood before a cracked mirror, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. The suit he wore was second-hand, bought from a charity shop 3 years ago, but he had spent hours the night before steaming out the creases and polishing his scuffed shoes until they shone. He looked tired. The dark circles under his eyes told the story of a young man who had spent months applying for hundreds of jobs, only to face rejection after rejection. His bank account was dangerously close to zero, and his landlord had given him a final warning just 2 days ago. This interview at Sterling & Co. was his last lifeline. It was one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the city. Landing a junior position there would not only solve his financial crisis but would also validate the years he had spent studying at university, working night shifts to pay his tuition. He had prepared for weeks, memorizing the company's history, their recent campaigns, and rehearsing answers to every possible question. He knew he was overqualified for the entry-level role, but pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Liam grabbed his portfolio and checked his watch. He had left himself plenty of time. Being late was not an option. In the corporate world, punctuality was the first test of competence. As he stepped out of his building, the cold wind bit at his face, but he straightened his shoulders and marched towards the bus stop. He was focused. He was determined. He told himself that today was the turning point. The bus ride was slow, the vehicle crawling through the heavy morning traffic. Liam stared out of the window, his knee bouncing nervously. He reviewed his notes, mouthing the words to himself. He needed to project confidence even though inside he felt like crumbling. He thought about his mother back in his hometown, how she always told him that good things come to those who work hard. He hoped she was right, because he had worked harder than anyone he knew, and he was still waiting for the good things to arrive. He got off the bus a few stops early. He wanted to walk the last mile to clear his head and settle his nerves. The city was bustling with commuters, a sea of black umbrellas and hurried footsteps. Everyone seemed to have a place to go, a purpose. Liam prayed that by the end of the day, he would be one of them. He checked his watch again. 40 minutes until the interview. He was making excellent time. The towering glass building of Sterling & Co. was visible in the distance, piercing the gray sky. It looked like a beacon of hope. He took a deep breath of the damp air and quickened his pace, unaware that the universe was about to test him in a way no interview ever could. Liam turned down a quieter side street to avoid the main crush of pedestrians. It was a shortcut he had mapped out the night before. The street was lined with older brick buildings and was relatively empty compared to the main road. He was mentally rehearsing his opening handshake when a sudden, sharp cry shattered his concentration. He stopped, looking around. At first he saw nothing but wet pavement and parked cars. Then, further down the road, near the entrance of a narrow alleyway, he saw a figure on the ground. It was a young woman. She was lying at an awkward angle, her belongings scattered across the wet tarmac. A bicycle lay on its side a few feet away, its front wheel spinning lazily. Liam hesitated. His eyes darted to his watch. 30 minutes remaining. He needed 10 minutes to walk to the building and another 10 to clear security and freshen up. He was on a tight schedule. He looked around, expecting someone else to step in. A man in a trench coat walked past on the other side of the road, burying his face in his scarf, pretending not to see her. A car drove by, splashing water, but did not slow down. The girl tried to push herself up, but she collapsed back down with a gasp of pain that twisted Liam's stomach. It was a sound of genuine distress. The clock in Liam's head was ticking louder than the thunder, rolling in the distance. If he stopped, he risked everything. He risked the interview, the job, the flat, his future. It would be so easy to keep walking. He could convince himself that someone else would help, that she probably just slipped and would be fine in a moment. But his feet wouldn't move forward. They remained planted on the pavement. He thought of his mother again, but this time, He didn't think of her advice about hard work. He thought about her kindness. He remembered how she would give her last bit of food to a neighbor, even when they had nothing. Could he really walk into a corporate office and talk about his integrity and values? If he left a girl crying in the rain? Curse it, Liam whispered under his breath. He ran over to her. As he got closer, he saw that she was shivering violently. She was soaked through, her face pale and etched with shock. Her leg was bent at a sickening angle. She had clearly been hit, perhaps by a car that hadn't stopped. Or maybe she had swerved to avoid one. "Are you all right?" Liam asked, dropping to his knees beside her, ignoring the water soaking into his suit trousers. I think my leg is broken," she stammered, her teeth chattering. "I can't move." Liam quickly took off his suit jacket, the one he had spent so long pressing, and draped it over her shoulders. "Don't try to move. I'm going to call an ambulance." He pulled out his mobile phone with trembling hands and dialed 999. As he spoke to the operator, he checked his watch. 20 minutes. The ambulance dispatcher said they were experiencing high demand, and it could take up to 15 minutes for a crew to arrive. Liam felt a cold dread wash over him. If he waited, he would miss the interview. There was no doubt about it. "Is anyone coming?" the girl asked, her eyes wide with fear. She looked young, perhaps in her early 20s, and she was gripping Liam's hand with surprising strength. "They're on their way," Liam said, forcing a calm smile. "I'm going to stay right here until they arrive. You are not going to be alone." He sat there in the rain, in his shirt sleeves, holding the hand of a stranger while his future dissolved with every passing second. He watched the minutes tick by. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. The time of his interview came and went. He sat in the wet street, ruined, but he did not let go of her hand. By the time the ambulance finally arrived, the adrenaline had faded, leaving Liam shivering and desolate. The paramedics took over, loading the young woman onto a stretcher. She looked at him as they lifted her up, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice weak. "You didn't have to stay." "I did," Liam replied simply. He watched the ambulance speed away, its sirens wailing, cutting through the city noise. He stood alone on the pavement, his suit jacket muddy and sodden, his white shirt clinging to his skin. He looked at his watch. He was 45 minutes late. Most people would have gone home. They would have accepted defeat and returned to their bed to weep. But Liam had a stubborn spark in him. He had nothing left to lose. He decided to go to the Sterling & Co. building anyway. Perhaps if he explained what had happened, they would understand. Perhaps they would see his dedication. He ran the rest of the way, arriving at the towering glass doors breathless and disheveled. He burst into the lobby, ignoring the strange looks from the security guards and the pristine staff members walking by. He approached the reception desk, where a woman with perfectly coiffed hair looked him up and down with open disdain. "I'm here for an interview with Mr. Henderson," Liam panted, wiping rain from his forehead. "I know I'm late, but there was an emergency." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, typing slowly on her computer. "Name?" "Liam Wright." She stopped typing and looked at him with a pitying smirk. "Mr. Wright, your slot was at 10:00 a.m. It is now 10:50 a.m. Mr. Henderson has moved on to the next candidate." "Please," Liam begged, leaning on the desk. "I was on my way, but there was an accident. A girl was hurt in the street. I had to wait for the ambulance. I couldn't just leave her." The receptionist's expression did not change. It was clear she had heard every excuse in the book. "That is a very noble story, Mr. Wright. However, Sterling & Co. values time management above all else. If you cannot manage your own schedule, you cannot manage our clients." "It's not a story," Liam insisted, his voice rising slightly out of desperation. "Just call Mr. Henderson. If I could just speak to him for 2 minutes." "Mr. Henderson is busy," a booming voice came from behind him. Liam turned to see a tall, imposing man in a sharp gray suit standing near the lifts. He held a coffee cup and looked at Liam as if he were a stain on the carpet. This was evidently Mr. Henderson. "Sir," Liam stepped forward, "I am Liam Wright. I am the candidate for—" "I know who you are," Henderson interrupted, his voice cold and clipped. "You are the young man who wasted my time. Do you have any idea how many people applied for this job? We chose to interview you and you didn't show up." "I stopped to help someone," Liam pleaded. "She had a broken leg. I was the only one who stopped." Henderson let out a short, humorless laugh. "Look at you. You're covered in mud. You look like a mess. Do you really think I believe that?" And even if it were true, it shows poor prioritization. In this business, results matter. Excuses do not. Please leave the building before I have security escort you out. Liam stood there, frozen. The rejection hit him harder than the cold rain. He had done the right thing, and he was being punished for it. He looked around the lobby, at the polished marble and the successful people, and realized he didn't belong. He lowered his head, turned around, and walked back out into the storm. The following week was a blur of misery for Liam. He didn't tell his mother what had happened. He couldn't bear to hear the disappointment in her voice, or worse, her sympathy. He spent his days lying on his sofa, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in his mind. Part of him wished he had never walked down that side street. Part of him wished he had just been selfish like everyone else. He was a good person, and what did he have to show for it? An eviction notice that was now taped to his front door. He started applying for anything: cleaning jobs, warehouse work, fast food service. The dream of a marketing career seemed like a cruel joke now. He had sold his watch to pay for groceries. He was at rock bottom. On a Tuesday afternoon, while he was scrubbing a stain off his carpet, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He almost didn't answer it, assuming it was the landlord chasing him for rent or a debt collector. But he sighed and swiped the green button. "Hello?" he answered, his voice flat and tired. "Is this Liam Wright?" a woman's voice asked. It was professional, crisp but polite. "Yes, this is he. Good afternoon. Mr. Wright, I am calling from the executive office of Sterling & Co." Liam's heart stopped. His grip on the phone tightened. I don't understand. Mr. Henderson told me to leave. I know I missed the interview. Please, you don't need to call to tell me I didn't get the job. I know. This isn't about the junior marketing role. Mr. Wright, the woman said gently. Mr. Sterling, the CEO, would like to see you personally. Liam blinked. The CEO, why? He has reviewed your file and would like to have a conversation. Can you come in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m? Liam was baffled. Was this some kind of mistake? Or perhaps Mr. Henderson had reported him for causing a scene in the lobby, and now he was going to be blacklisted formally. But he had no other options. Yes, I can be there. The next morning, Liam found himself back in the same lobby. He felt a wave of nausea as he walked past the reception desk. The same receptionist was there, but this time she looked at him with wide eyes and quickly ushered him towards the private executive lifts. Mr. Sterling is expecting you on the top floor, she said, her voice trembling slightly. The lift ride was smooth and silent. When the doors opened, Liam stepped into an office that was larger than his entire flat. The walls were glass, offering a panoramic view of London. Behind a massive oak desk sat an older man with silver hair and kind eyes. But it wasn't the man that caught Liam's attention. Sitting on a sofa in the corner of the office was a young woman. Her leg was in a heavy plaster cast, and she was resting on crutches. She looked different, cleaner, dressed in expensive clothes, but the face was unmistakable. It was the girl from the rain. Liam froze in the doorway. You, the girl smiled, a genuine warm smile. Hello, Liam. The CEO stood up and walked around the desk. He extended his hand. Mr. Wright, it is an honor to finally meet you. My name is Arthur Sterling, and this is my daughter, Sophie. Liam shook the CEO's hand, his mind racing to catch up with reality. He looked from Arthur to Sophie, unable to form a coherent sentence. Your daughter? Yes, Arthur said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. Sophie told me everything. She told me how she fell off her bike when a car swerved into her. She told me how dozens of people walked past her while she lay there in pain. And she told me about the young man who stopped. Sophie adjusted her position on the sofa, wincing slightly. I asked the hospital staff to find out who called the ambulance. Your number was on the log. Then I remembered you mentioned you had an interview here. It wasn't hard to put the pieces together. I found out you were rejected by Henderson because you were late. Arthur's face darkened slightly at the mention of Henderson. I had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Henderson yesterday. I asked him why he turned away a candidate who showed such exemplary character. He told me he was looking for efficiency. I told him that I am looking for humanity. Liam felt a lump form in his throat. I couldn't leave her there, sir. I knew I was going to miss the interview, but I couldn't walk away. And that, Arthur said firmly, is exactly why you are here. Liam, you can teach anyone marketing. You can teach anyone how to read a spreadsheet or run a campaign, but you cannot teach someone to care. You cannot teach integrity. You have to have that inside you already. Arthur walked back to his desk and picked up a contract. Mr. Henderson was hiring for a junior assistant. That position has been filled. However, I am looking for something different. I need a personal liaison for our charitable foundations and community outreach programs. I need someone who understands people, who sees those who are invisible to everyone else. The starting salary is double what the junior role offered. He held the paper out to Liam. The job is yours if you want it. Liam stared at the paper. His hands were shaking, but this time not from fear. The eviction notice, the hunger, the despair of the last week. It all evaporated in an instant. He looked at Sophie, who gave him a nod of encouragement. I don't know what to say, Liam whispered. Thank you. Don't thank me, Arthur smiled. You earned this. You earned it the moment you decided that a stranger's life was more important than your own ambition. Welcome to the company, Liam. Liam signed the contract. As he walked out of the office an hour later, he passed Mr. Henderson in the hallway. The manager looked pale and quickly looked away, avoiding Liam's gaze. Liam didn't gloat. He didn't feel the need to. He simply walked to the lift, pressed the button for the ground floor, and stepped out into the streets of London. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, bathing the city in a golden light. Liam took a deep breath. He had thought he lost everything by being kind. He had thought the world was a cold, unfeeling place where nice guys finished last. But as he walked towards the bus stop, he realized he was wrong. The world was watching, even when you thought no one was there. And sometimes, just sometimes, the good you put out comes back to you 1,000 times over. It is easy to be kind when it costs you nothing, but true character is revealed when kindness requires a sacrifice. Liam was willing to lose his dream to help a stranger, proving that he possessed a wealth far greater than any salary could provide. Never regret doing the right thing, even if it seems like you've lost in the moment. You never know who you are helping or how that act of love will circle back to you. Be the person who stops. Be the person who cares, because in the end, that is the only success that truly matters.